Well, good evening, my friends. How are you? Welcome to another edition of Wednesday Night Live with me, Mike Avery, here in my home office, the home studio this evening. Mad Jack, good evening, buddy. How are you? Randy, always a pleasure. Sean, thank you again for donating a trip to our Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction. Appreciate that very, very much. Going to be a good event. I'll tell you more about that. Coming up as this live stream progresses, I'll tell you how to get tickets. I'll tell you some of the cool things we're going to be auctioning off and more. But first, let's say hi to some of you. Cliff, always a pleasure, buddy. Barry, nice to have you along with us. Craig Plowman, one of the most generous guys I know. You made the Africa trip available for us. You made the Illinois whitetail trip available for us. You stopped by and met me this morning at the radio studio and gave me a very, very nice knife. So, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation knife. So, Craig, I do appreciate it very much. Michael, how are you this evening? Mark, nice to have you along with us. Hello, Matt. My name is Mike Avery. This is Wednesday Night Live. And kind of a special Wednesday night because coming up soon, in just a couple of minutes, Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, is going to join me. Timing is pretty good on this because their annual convention is coming up in just a couple of weeks now, about 2.5 weeks now. And there's at least one big thing in the outdoor news we might want to talk about as well. So Amy will be joining us very, very shortly. Robert, good evening. How are you? Paul, thank you. Joe Bean says, hey, Cap, sorry about the lack of being on. Snow has been crazy. It has been crazy. Joe Bean, you and Johnny Bowler should get together because you guys are going crazy plowing snow. Johnny says he's looking forward to getting down here below the bridge for our dinner just so he can get away from snow. Dan, how are you? Tom, thank you. Uncle Johnny, how was your trip across state? I hope everything went well. Hello, Jeff. Nice to have you along with us. Tony, my fellow skinny water brother, I look forward to seeing you Saturday as well. Tony's talking about an event this Saturday at the Calvary Baptist Church in Midland. I will be speaking there briefly. The featured speaker is actually Kyle Green from the Greenway Outdoors. Amy over there says, who can we get as a speaker? I said, Kyle Green. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I'm really looking forward to hearing him talk. And Tony, I look forward to seeing you. And can we not wait until the ice is gone and get those boats out in that skinny water? I'm so excited. Hello, Linda. Shout out to Amy T. Always look forward to her visit. Indeed, a shout out to Amy T. Hello, Lori. Good evening. How are you? Rick, I am doing well. How are you? Everything is going fine with me. Yeah, Joe, you've heard my comments. I was so afraid. When I went up there on my bear hunt, I was afraid to go into Andy's because I thought if I go into Andy's, I'm not coming out upright. I did because I had to hunt the next day, but it was a great place. Bernie, good evening. Elmer, 120 inches of snow so far this winter in Petoskey. Ralph, how you doing this evening? Hello, Jim. Terry Stefanski, how you doing this evening, buddy? Kevin Hannes, always a pleasure. Kevin, the course superintendent at the West Branch Country Club, where we will have our second annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing Friday, July 25th to benefit MUCC's youth camp. And we just got some big news about that golf outing. Little too early to let the cat out of the bag, but let's just say we are off to an excellent start. Denise, how are you? There you go. Tim, John, thanks for joining me on this edition of Wednesday Night Live. Some things to talk about tonight. Got to talk about the weather. It has been frigid, but it's great for folks who love the snow, who love the ice. We got ice conditions across our state. I've never seen them like this in recent years for sure. Tommy, Jim, James, thanks for joining us. Patrick, glad to see you as well. Also, we're going to do a Wednesday Night Live at the Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch. Just put this on your calendar. Wednesday, April 23rd. That's the Wednesday after Easter. We will open up reservations for that on the 5th here on Wednesday Night Live. Well, I'm taking care of housekeeping next week. Deidre Hurley, one of the co-chairs of our big Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction, will be here to kick off our silent auction part of that event. I think that's it. Oh, and then in a couple of weeks from now, what is it, the 8th and 9th? I will be at Treetops in Gaylord for MUCC's annual convention. We'll talk more about that. Okay. Patrick, Scott, where have you been? Nice to have you back. Thank you for donating a shoulder mount for our Trinity Monitor dinner. Ross Elliott, I'm looking forward to fleecing. Looking for taking your. No, I mean, looking forward to seeing you bid at the Wild Game dinner. Hey, Brian, Paul, JT, thank you. JT already has donated a walleye fishing trip for our golf outing. We've got 2 fishing trips already donated, so it's off. It's too early to talk about it. John Sullivan from Lure Lipstick. How have you been, buddy? Nice to have you along here with us tonight. Dave. House Bill 6229. I'm not exactly sure what that is. I have a pretty good idea. We might be talking about that shortly. What do you say? You look great, Captain. Happy about your recovery. I'm completely recovered. God is great. I am completely recovered. Hey, Jay. Jay will see both Amy and I at the MUCC convention. Jay is with the Black Lake chapter of Sturgeon for Tomorrow. He is the new Sturgeon General and doing a wonderful job. He's doing a great job. Okay, so let's so we can Justin Tomei of MUCC, their liaison, said House Bill 6229 was the license fee increase from last session. That bill no longer exists. I'm telling you, man, you got a question, you bring up a concept, we put it in front of you, my friends, my listeners, viewers in the live streams, and we're going to get an answer, especially when you got Justin Tomei standing by in the wings, you got Amy Trotter standing by in the wings. Who's the most reliable for ice conditions on the Saginaw River and Saginaw Bay? That's a very good question, and I'm not sure I would actually trust anybody without being out there myself. I will tell you this. There's a guy on Facebook called the Airborne Angler. He routinely flies Saginaw Bay and spends a lot of time fishing Saginaw Bay, and he will not tell you go, no go, or safe, not safe. He won't go that far, but he will tell you what he's seeing. Airborne Angler on Facebook. Check him out. Plus, he's just funnier than hell, too. Any more news on the rod limit issue? No. But it's not dead yet. I'll just leave it at that. It's not dead yet. Okay. You know that, let me back up in case you don't know. I take the folks that I partner with very seriously, whether it's an individual, whether it's a company, whether it's an organization. And I have partnered with the folks at MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs. I would like to think the folks at MUCC at this point have become friends of mine. We have a lot of the same beliefs. We don't agree on everything, but of course we don't. But I strongly support what it is that they're doing to preserve, protect, and defend our conservation issues here across the state. MUCC is an interesting organization because it's actually a very small organization, and it's member-driven, but it's spearheaded by this lady right here, Amy Trotter. Amy, you're still muted. There we go.
Got it. Thank you.
Amy, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great. It is the busiest time of year for us in terms of getting ready for all the fun things to come. Plus, we've got Outdoorama this weekend, so we'll be down at the Suburban Collection Showplace in Novi as well. So we're still prepping for convention, but doing a lot of outreach in the meantime.
Outdoorama was for many years strictly an MUCC production. Now Showspan is the group behind it that puts it on, but you're still very much involved, Amy?
Absolutely. We've got a big booth there right when you walk in. We're still selling memberships. We're talking to kids about camp. We're handing out magazines, and we're still in discussions about next year, but we may be more involved even next year, and we're really excited about some opportunities.
Excellent. I'm so glad to hear that. Now let's talk, and I'll tell you folks, you're watching tonight. If you have a question for that lady right there, Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, feel free to post it here. If I don't see it, maybe Amy will see it. Maybe Justin will see it. Justin, if you see something we should address, please repost. I will ask you this, though. This is not a Stump the Amy Trotter live stream. she doesn't know the answer to everything right off the top of her head. She's pretty darn good. But some of the questions you want to ask are actually the responsibility of the NRC or the DNR. And Amy it will tell you that. So if you have a question, feel free to post it. Amy, I've got to start out right with the convention. What is the purpose of that, and what's on the agenda this year?
Our annual convention is has moved to March, so we've been doing it now in March for the last few years. It's sort of our, you know, getting everybody together in a room. We do the business of the organization. We elect officers. We give out conservation awards, and then we talk about the policy positions that we take, because those again are not decided by our staff or by our executive board in Lansing. What we do is a true grassroots policy process where any of our members can pitch an idea in the form of a resolution. It goes through a process. Ultimately, it can come to convention, and they debate it just like it's Congress. There's a pro mic and there's a con mic, and what comes out of there, again, usually it requires 2/3 majority, but if it passes, that does become then the marching orders for myself and my staff to go and implement.
All right, and we'll come back to that a little bit. Linda has a question. Uh, you can read it. A lot of activity at the national level regards to the national forest. What sort of impact will there be at the state level? What's going on there, Amy?
Yeah, there's been certainly a lot of there's been a lot of firings of temporary workers on the national forest. So I know there is some concern about forest management on the national forest. One of the opportunities we have here in Michigan is we actually already have Good Neighbor Authority worked out, that we actually have our DNR and our state foresters actually help out on the national forest to manage those lands and then actually get reimbursed from the timber sales there. So it's a really cool program. It is congressionally delegated. So as long as that program sticks around, I have less concern about Michigan. Out west, I can't speak to how they manage their forests or those kinds of things. I do know that, again, even if the national forest staffing suffers, forest management will absolutely suffer. Trail management will absolutely suffer. But we do have this Good Neighbor Authority that is an opportunity in Michigan, to maybe grow some of those partnership activities.
Always count on Linda to ask a good question. Here's a question I don't know. Exact reason we can't hunt with a crossbow in the UP in December. That's not your deal, is it, Amy?
I mean, I was there when the decision was made, so I can tell you what the thinking was and remains. The hunters in the UP, and again, I can't speak for MUCC's position. We didn't take a position on this, but hunters in the UP were very concerned in December as deer start to yard up. And that they would be more vulnerable to crossbow harvest. And so that's the why. There is concern, again, those late seasons in the UP, that deer are more grouped together, more vulnerable, less hardy, I guess, and that they would be particularly vulnerable to additional harvest at that point in time with crossbows. And that was, again, has been there since crossbows were legalized in the archery season. So that hasn't necessarily changed, but certainly they keep talking about it.
Look who's here with us tonight.
Hi, Mom.
Ed, hunts for wheelchair-bound hunters. I mean, there's. It seems to me the DNR is doing a fairly good job with trying to be as inclusive as possible and letting folks with disabilities getting into the outdoors. Amy, am I wrong there?
Well, we have both the Liberty Hunt and the Independence Hunt that are specifically for people with disabilities, veterans with certain disabilities, and then the Liberty Hunt adds in youth as well. But as you recall, last year, the Natural Resources Commission actually changed both of those hunts to only allow individuals that qualify for those hunts to only shoot does. So they made those two hunts does only. That has been an extremely controversial decision, and one that we believe they are going to revisit. It's one of those things that's on the agenda at our convention, but also the deer advisory teams that kind of came out of that DMI process, the Deer Management Initiative process. So the DNR is continuing to work with advisory team on deer issues, but I think they are revisiting that situation and that decision before it gets implemented here in 2025. Now, I can't speak to the youth specifically, but I think the hunters with disabilities may be able to expand that portfolio of deer during those seasons if the NRC takes action.
Eric, just you're talking about bucks and does for the youth hunt. Amy already addressed that. Speaking of controversial ideas, what about the concept, Amy? And you can tell me, is this legitimate? Is it a trial balloon? What is it? But the thought of having a license to allow whitetail and elk hunters in the Lower Peninsula to get a license to allow baiting.
Tough one. This was introduced, and it has been introduced in the past. Basically, it would legalize baiting and keep some of those regulations on it, but require a permit. It's ironic because most hunters think the DNR is after a cash grab for all these different license fees, and this isn't coming from the DNR. This is actually coming from someone's perspective that is probating and wants to see it lawfully being able to be done. Again, that's not an issue that MUCC supports because we believe all these decisions should be in the hands of our Natural Resources Commission, not our legislature. But beyond that, again, a price to have a tool in the woods. Again, we regulate the harvest through licenses, not generally the other activities. And so it is an interesting issue. Frankly, I don't think it's going to go anywhere this year unless it gets sort of glommed on and tie-barred to some other issue that's one of those must-pass ideas that everybody, just has to go along with it.
The idea of having the legislature doing an end run on the NRC or the DNR, that's a little concerning, isn't it? I mean, they have the authority, they have the right to do it, but.
I mean, that's what we really worked hard on in 1996 with Proposal G, in 2014 with the Scientific Fish and Wildlife Conservation Act. We don't want our legislature managing wildlife or managing fish on a day-to-day basis. We don't believe that they have enough information, that we don't know exactly, again, what their motives are. And there's just 148 of them. A lot of people to try to educate the nuances of scientific management. That's why we believe the Natural Resources Commission is better to have that dialogue with them. They only have authority over hunting and fishing. They don't have to deal with insurance and education and all the other ancillary issues that the legislature does, and they can really focus on those issues. So again, the Natural Resources Commission, I know a lot of your listeners don't believe that it's perfect or don't like it at all, but it's much better than 148 people trying to make these decisions as well.
Greg Plowman, can anybody go to the convention?
Yes, any member has the ability to go to convention. You can't vote unless you're properly, credentialed, I guess. So you're carrying votes either on behalf of individual members in your region, which there are some of those spots still available, or you're carrying votes on behalf of an affiliate club. But any member has the ability to come to convention, take to the microphone, express their opinions on these resolutions. All of those things are open to any member of MUCC. And certainly we want the more the merrier. It is $100 because it is a day and a half convention, and that includes a couple breakfasts and lunch. And then there is an annual banquet, our Conservation Awards banquet is an additional $75 for a ticket to that. And we have a nice, usually a steak dinner, and we're going to have a lot of cool silent auction items and a raffle as well.
Do I need a ticket for that?
Well, no, you don't need one because you specifically are one of our award winners. And so, for those of you that don't know, Mike Avery has been named our Conservation Communicator of the Year from MUCC. So we will be honored by his presence both at the awards dinner and also the following day on Sunday for a keynote address.
And I look forward to that, Amy. And thank you for doing that. My partnership with MUCC means a lot, and recognition from you folks is really special to me. So I do appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to it. Let's see. Well, no, let me follow up on the convention. So, what are the key topics that are on the agenda for this year? When I look at the rundown, and I made my votes as a member, an independent member, but some of them I wondered where did these come from. Talking with Justin Tomei on the radio show today, I got a better feeling that look at some of these are almost preemptive to address things that are out there that the general public isn't aware of yet.
Correct. Yeah, some of these are more sort of theoretical, or making sure that MUCC is ready for kind of the next phase of conversation. So we have some that again are just more educational. We want to support initiatives that are more conservation based rather than preservation based. And that's really how we've been acting for the last 87 years. That's not new necessarily, but again, having some of these things codified into our policy positions makes it more clear for from outsiders and legislators to kind of know our where we're coming from. So there's some like that. There's one opposing market hunting here in Michigan. Again, we got rid of market hunting back in the 1800s. It was one of the first conservation laws, actually. And there are a lot of discussions happening today about whether or not market hunting does have a place in deer management because of the places with overpopulations of deer. So that seemed concerning to some of our members. So they brought that forward. Again, not that there's a proposal on the table per se, but again, to have that conversation in advance of having those proposals. We've got a couple different ones about Hunter Orange, which I thought was interesting. One person wants Hunter Orange to be voluntary again, and that was an interesting perspective. The other one on that is actually to address areas that are archery hunting only. So basically within safety zones, or for whatever reason, firearm hunting isn't allowed, that they would be able to go orange free, I guess, in those archery zones where a gun wouldn't be allowed to be used anyway. We're talking about underwater spearfishing, something that most people don't know anything about, probably. But there's a whole advisory group now going on with the department to talk more about expansion of opportunities. So our members wanted to have that discussion within MUCC as well.
Matt asked the question. I haven't heard anything in a while about commercial fishing updates. Anything going on there, Amy?
As you probably remember, we just ended a 2-year legislative cycle. So at the end of December of 24, all the bills we had been working on go away. The slate is wiped clean, and anything that had been moving along or we had, opposed is now dead and has to be reintroduced. So there'll be a different bill number, and we do need to work on getting the good commercial fishing bill, last sponsored by Representative Amos O'Neill, back on the agenda. So we look forward to working with him and a variety of legislators on bringing the good commercial fishing bill back in this session. It will need to be bipartisan, of course, because now we have a House that's Republican led and a Senate that's still Democratic led. And so we do need to, work with both sides of the aisle on this. So things like this are complicated and may be difficult, but we're certainly willing and want to make that a priority issue for this legislative session.
Joe says, thank you, Amy, for being always on our side. Ted has an interesting question. Legislature managing public lands in addition to hunting and fishing. Shouldn't public land use be based on scientific principles and constituent support? Interesting question, Amy. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, I know legislators would quote from the Constitution that says they have a constitutional authority and responsibility to, manage our natural lands and protect them from, you know, despair, or, in terms of, protecting them from waste. So they do feel that they have a constitutional authority to, ensure the protection of our natural resources and the wise use. But yeah, I do think that there is, so there sometimes is a role for the legislature for sure, but we do need to make sure that we're, being mindful of the uses on that land, because sometimes too those uses come into conflict. And so we want to make sure that we're working with our DNR, and that's the value of a lot of these advisory groups that I talk about all the time, that our staff and our members serve on these, to make sure that the voices of hunters and anglers are considered when any of those public lands are being, changed for their use, or if trails are getting closed, or new opportunities are getting expanded. We want to be part of those conversations to ensure that, people's lawful access to hunting and fishing opportunities is protected.
Amy from Ed Bolanowski, MUCC's opinion on the proposed bill to force DNR officers to have a judge sign a search warrant. Any thoughts on that? Have you guys taken a position on that yet?
That I don't believe is something that we have ever taken a position on. I do think it's interesting. And I've heard a lot of this kind of legislation has been introduced in the past, and it has been more common out west as well. From what I hear out west, there was a lot of concern because this changes the open fields doctrine, and that goes into a sort of a lot of legal theory and everything. But it might be concerning if this was to go forward, but also I understand that people don't want, I guess, unlawful search and seizure. I mean, that's a constitutional, protection as well. So I think there's a balance there. And again, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't really give the ins and outs of, pros and cons of it. But I do know there is a concern from being able to pursue wildlife violations, I guess, in the way that they do now, but also I understand the private property rights as well.
Justin Tomei, he is your guy. Is Justin's basically a lobbyist for us, isn't he? Or no? Is that
Absolutely.
he
Yes,
is
he
okay?
is. He and I are both registered lobbyists, but he's doing the day-to-day work.
And he loves that stuff. He loves to get, well, so do you, but he loves to get just deep down and dirty. And I appreciate the fact that there are people like you, Amy, and like Justin who are willing to do this, because the rest of us, most of the rest of us, either don't have the knowledge, don't have the contacts, or don't have the interest to do it. So the fact that you guys are out there doing it, I do appreciate that very much. Amy, what about membership in MUCC? Because that's one of the things that you've been pushing for this past year. Are you seeing a bump in membership at all?
We do have new members coming on. We're getting tons of impressions on social media. So our digital, advertising is working. We're getting exposed to a lot more people, but social media isn't the best tool to actually get people to kind of join and buy. It takes conversations like these, it takes more than just that 30-second ad as you're scrolling through to really get people to bite. So we're looking always for more opportunities to have these kinds of dialogues to better explain who we are and what we do. And video is great, live streaming is great. So we're going to be doing a lot more we're going to be doing a lot more video work, and we also have a podcast that helps people understand a little bit better who we are and what we do. But membership is doing well. It's $35 a year. That's it. And what we are doing, and is really exciting, is growing the number of partner member discounts that we are offering now. So once you become a member, you have that online portal, you can get a slew of discount codes now. And I think we're at least up to 7 of different discounts and programs, discounts on knives, on gear, all kinds of things. And so we're really excited to be rolling those out on a regular basis now. Tyler and Steve in my office are doing great work in landing some of those opportunities and expanding the value of a membership to those out there.
Excellent. Jordan Farmer. Jordan and his brother Justin are big, hardcore houndsmen. They've lost dogs to wolves in the past. They lost a dog a couple of weeks ago. I had Jordan's brother Justin on the TV show, on the radio show. Amy, I know you can't control wolf management, but you do sit on the Wolf Management Advisory Committee, I believe, or have in the past. Are we making any progress there at all?
So I want to share with you guys something I haven't actually been able to talk about yet, but there will be more information coming. There is a national wolf conversation that is happening, and it was something that was enacted by our former, president at the national level to engage people through community conversations. So MUCC hosted one of those community conversations last year with the consultant, and actually, what stemmed out of that conversation, and again, it was all MUCC members, all hunters, all people who support management of wolves here in Michigan. One of the things that came out of that is sort of the criteria, if you will, the consultant put together that said if we're going to have a national conversation, we need to have people in the room that fit these various buckets. And one of the buckets was a hunter. One of the buckets was someone from the Midwest, and particularly in an area where wolves are abundant or overabundant and unmanaged. So, you have to have that whole spectrum of individuals in the room to have that conversation. Only 25 people were invited to that national wolf conversation, and actually I was one of them. So it was an honor to be chosen out of a national for a national conversation. And this was not the Wolf Management Advisory Council of Michigan. That was really a terrible process, honestly. There's only 5 people. It was really passionate on both sides, and I remember the farmers coming to those because it was right after they had lost their first dog, and it was devastating, and we heard all of that, and we had no power to act. That advisory council was it just didn't work in the ways that maybe the creators had envisioned. This thing is different. This is private. It is, again, the right people in the room, and it's all spectrum, so it's both, sort of pro management and anti management and kind of all the spectrums in between. A lot of ranchers, a lot of, people that live with wolves. That is a really cool opportunity. We only had 3.5 days together. So I actually was out with this group back in January. And it was supposed to be like a year-long initiative. The funding got cut. So we're still trying to figure out where to go from here. But I believe that the right people were in the room to kind of make progress, because even if Trump delists wolves tomorrow, which could happen any day this year, I believe that wolves will be delisted by the new administration. It's still going to end up back in court. And that is the most frustrating thing ever. But I think if we can move beyond that to really modernize the Endangered Species Act, take wolves out of the courtrooms and really just kind of treat them like wildlife. That's my hope. And maybe this group can kind of move wolves beyond sort of this listing, delisting bat that, merry-go-round that we've been on for so long, because we need to move on from that. Absolutely. And we 100% support that. But how do we keep it out of the courts is the question. And so we need congressional support. But even if we don't get that, we'll need to kind of think about how we can move this conflict out of the courtrooms and come to some kind of consensus. So there's an opportunity here. I'm excited to be involved. I met some really awesome people from across the country involved in wolf management. And, I don't know yet what will come of that, but it's all the right people in the room, and I have access to those folks now, and with a lot of good information as well.
Excellent. Couple last questions for you. This one comes from Ted. His concern, I think NRC, Michigan Wildlife Council, those are all appointed by the governor. Should we be concerned about that? Is there anything we can do? Is there a better process?
Well, certainly people can apply. So I think that's actually not a well-known thing. There is an application process on the governor's website to be able to apply and submit your application to be on the Natural Resources Commission or the Michigan Wildlife Council. We, as MUCC, have tended not to endorse applicants, but certainly we do try to encourage people who we think would be a good fit, or people that fit the criteria that we would like to see on those bodies, to apply. So most recently, one of our board members has become one of the new appointed members of the Michigan Wildlife Council. And that's great. One of our former board members was on the Natural Resources Commission and even chair for some time. So those are those opportunities. We need to get the right people to apply and kind of give them a very good resume that it would be hard to say no to.
Is Dan Elfig, the guy who was a board member of yours, now on Michigan Wildlife Council?
Actually, that happened in reverse. He was on the Wildlife Council first, and now he is a new board member.
Oh,
But
okay.
Don Levy is on our board and is a member of the Michigan Wildlife
Okay.
Council as
Okay.
well.
All right. So, last question for you. How do we sign up? How do we become a member?
MUCC.org and hit the join button. It's again $35 a year. It's a relatively low price. You can certainly sign up for right online. It's very easy. You can even sign up for auto renewal, so we don't have to keep pestering you for checks in the mail or anything like that. And as a member, you get Michigan Out of Doors magazine. You get all those member benefits that I mentioned, and you're supporting an organization. I think that's the bigger thing. Again, the money and the benefits are all nice to have, but you're supporting an organization with a mission that's and we talk a lot about policy here and advocacy, but we do even more than that. We do habitat work. We engage kids at our youth camp. We do a lot of things to just support the conservation movement and ensuring that we have the next generation of conservation stewards here in Michigan. So that's really the thing that you're supporting. You're supporting the mission by becoming a member. You can donate as well from that same button right next to the join button. There's a donate button. That all helps to go towards our conservation mission. And we need a healthy MUCC in the state. We need it because there's no one else that's really watching the day-to-day legislation, the day-to-day Natural Resources Commission information. We're live streaming those meetings for everybody here, but there's no one else that's really paying attention to all those details. We do it for you so you don't have to. That's the big thing that, when you invest in MUCC, you don't have to be the DIY and figure all these statutes out and all this information out. You get to turn the reins over to us, let us handle the sausage making, and we'll deliver you the product. And that's what we can do, with a strong MUCC.
My buddy Scott just texted me. He said, "Is Amy willing to give out her email address?"
Absolutely. Sure. Yeah. It's atrotter@mucc.org.
atrotter@mucc.org. That's how we get in touch with you.
Absolutely.
Amy, always great to talk to you. I look forward to seeing you at the convention in a couple of weeks. Thank you for the recognition for the award. I'll thank you in advance. And we'll ask people to put on their calendars Friday, July 25th for the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing to benefit MUCC's Youth Camp. If last year was good, this year looks like we're off to an even better start, Amy.
I'm looking forward to it, and I just can't wait to see everybody out on a beautiful day on the greens, and all the great prizes that we'll have. It was a great day, and I'm really looking forward to the next one.
Amy, thank you for that. We'll see you soon and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All righty. Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, MUCC.org. Isn't she something else? Joe Bean, is there still room for the Trinity dinner? Thank you for asking, Joe. Right here. We actually have not sold out yet this year. We've sold out every year. I'm actually quite confident we will again this year, but we still have some room. There is the flyer right there. It's Saturday, March 1st at the Great Hall in Midland. Doors open at 4:30. Dinner at 6:30. Dinner at 6. If you go to that website on there or scan the QR code, you can get tickets. You can also, on my Facebook page, I have pinned that flyer to the top of my page. I wouldn't wait much longer, though. But yes, we still have. Joe says he's buying 2 tickets right now. John says that Amy Trotter, she's sharp. She is indeed. Where'd Jim go? Always a pleasure to have Amy on here. Thank you for that. Brent says, "Hey, Mike, fresh from baseball practice. You want to help coach?" Thanks, Amy. No, I'm not coaching, but yes, thank you indeed, Amy. Johnny Bowler says, "Dang, he missed it again." Johnny, if you weren't plowing snow or hanging out at Andy's, you wouldn't miss this thing all the time, all right? Johnny Bowler donated a Michigan bear hunt to our Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction. The prizes we have lined up, both for the live auction, for the silent auction. They're actually very, very impressive as to what we are able to pull together every year. We will kick off the live auction 1 week from tonight, right here on Wednesday Night Live. Wow, Kevin, I just read your comment. Oof. Matt Schock donated a coyote hunt for our dinner. He will be there as well. 1 week from tonight, we are kicking off the live auction as Deidre Hurley, one of the co-chairs of that event, joins us. It's coming up fast now, isn't it? I mean, it's going to be another great event. I hope to see you there. Lots of great prizes, great food, a lot of guns. Guns, 50-50. Door prizes, raffle items, bourbon pull, wine pull, you name it. It's going to be a great event. I'd love to see you there. All proceeds go to our church, Trinity Monitor, our Lutheran church and our school, a very vibrant, very viable bunch of God-loving, faith-based people, and it's a great event. Love to see you there if you can possibly make it. Okay. Johnny says, well, I am literally at Andy's because I'm sick of snow. Johnny, I don't blame you at all, buddy. The amount of snow you've seen up there. Brent says, I'm going to win Johnny Bowler's bear hunt this year. Well, Ross probably will. Ross isn't even going to be at the event, but he is bidding remotely. I will find out how much Ross is willing to bid, Brent, and then you can beat him by $1. Okay, let me tell you who's coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. Matt Schock, who is on here tonight, is my first guest this week. In fact, there he is right there. Matt is my first guest this week. He donated a predator hunt, a coyote hunt, for the event. So thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. Then Dan Alfig, a new member of the Michigan Wildlife Council, talks about the Here for Generations campaign. In our second hour, we're talking about late season ice fishing and early season steelheading with Ryan Russ of River Rat Guide Service. Then Justin Tomei from MUCC. Amy, who was just on here, is Justin's boss. Well, Justin talks with me about this proposal to this legislation that would allow for a bait license for whitetail and elk hunters in the Lower Peninsula. Justin doesn't think it's going to go anywhere. I personally would like to see it. Well, let me rephrase that. I support baiting as a method of harvesting deer. I think the DNR has backed themselves in a corner with this issue, and they've got so much riding on the statement that we can't bait because it spreads disease. I don't think they can ever get out of it. So I think they've locked themselves into it. Do I want to see baiting? Yes. Do I want to see the legislature enable baiting? No. Don't want to see that at all. And in our third hour, we're talking fishing with Mark Romanek of Fishing 411. And, of course, Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner has another great recipe for us. I did record a podcast afterwards. It's the Angler Quest podcast. And I featured Brad Dupuy, or I interviewed Brad Dupuy on that. Anybody cook with bear fat? I don't know. I'll tell you what, we've been eating a lot of bear burger at the Avery house lately. We like bear burger, I think, better than we like venison burger. Eric says, a bait license? What on earth? People are doing it now without it, and it's not legal. So who's to say they will buy a license? I would. I'm one of the idiots who would buy a license because I support baiting. I would like to hunt over bait, but I will not right now because I can't get caught hunting over bait. I realize everybody around me is baiting. I realize more than half the deer hunters in the Lower Peninsula are indeed baiting, but I won't do it because I can't. If I had a legal out, if I could buy a license that would allow me to legally bait, I would do it in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. John says he rendered 80 pounds of bear fat. Don't waste it. Eric says rendered bear lard is delicious. Isn't it always fun when Amy Trotter joins us? I've got a busy couple of weeks here now. Saturday, I will be at the Calvary Baptist event on it's Saturday. I will be there this Saturday. Of course, next Saturday is our big Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction. The following Saturday and Sunday is MUCC's convention. Thank you again, Amy, for giving me that award, for honoring me. I appreciate it. Looking down the road, April 23rd is our next Wednesday Night Live at the Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch. We will open that up on Wednesday, March 5th for reservations. And looking further down the road, let me do something here.
Stories and laughter keep us beguiled. Every fish that you catch, every heart you embrace brings us closer to nature's grace.
And looking farther down the road to Friday, July 25th, the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing. And I just got the best news today about that outing. I can't really unveil what it is yet, but man, it just makes me so happy to see where things are going. My name is Mike Avery. This is Wednesday Night Live. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Check out the radio show this weekend. If you can't, make sure you check out the podcast. Try to stay warm. Thank you, Amy Trotter, for joining us. And I'll talk to you next week, my friends, right here on Wednesday Night Live.